Todd Hendrickson has always been hard to pin down.
Have fun. I will.
Whether he was in the air or on the water, his love for adventure has always run deep. Then in 2016, Todd started to lose the strength in his hands. Doctors diagnosed him with ALS.
And here we are. It's 3 years later, and
today, Todd's confined to a bed at a hospital in Melbourne, unable to move his arms and legs, unable to breathe on his own, and unable to speak. He uses this computer to communicate by spelling out words with his eyes.
What has been the most difficult change?
That's hard to answer. So much has changed. I guess not being able to do things myself.
We gotta have you looking good on camera.
His daughter, mother, the entire family is by his side as much as they can.
It's terrible. It's sad. I'm not going to cry. I've cried too much.
Now Todd needs to go to a long-term facility, one that cares for patients who depend on a ventilator to breathe. But the hospital couldn't find one nearby, and neither could the family. The closest one is in Georgia.
I don't want to live with this disease without them.
Desperate, the family turned to CBS 12 News. We found there is a severe shortage of nursing homes in Florida that provide that type of long-term care. The state lists 17 nursing homes that offer it. I wanted to know if your facility provides long-term care for ventilator-dependent patients. We called every one and found only 4 actually do. 2 aren't associated with Todd's hospital. 1 only accepts patients with neurological problems, and the other one doesn't have any rooms available. That leaves Georgia, which is more than 400 miles away from his family in Vero Beach, where he was born and raised.
it's just not going to be that easy for us, so far away. We have jobs and children, and
The family says moving to Georgia just isn't a viable option.
where do they send everybody else that has the same, I mean, not even his disease, you know, like just being on a ventilator? Where do they go? What do they do?
We reached out to State Senator Gail Harrell to find out why Florida doesn't have enough facilities for ventilator patients.
I feel very sad for him and for his family, but I also understand how complicated a vent patient is.
Senator Harrell says a large reason is money.
These patients are very sick. It takes a high level of expertise, and you have to have respiratory therapists, you have to have a pulmonologist.
24-hour care, specialized training, and increased insurance coverage. All of that costs money, and Medicaid doesn't offer a large enough reimbursement to provide incentive. Senator Harrell says that's why she and her colleagues on the Healthcare Appropriation Committee created a law that provides $200 additional a day to nursing homes that care for long-term ventilator patients. It went into effect this year.
Is that enough to solve this shortage?
Well, I think you're going to see a ramp up in the availability of these services.
This man, the ALS progressing, at this time he said, you know, this is the time we need family the most. And now he's getting taken away from his family.
And you know, my heart goes out to him and to his family that this is a very difficult situation. Perhaps within the next 6 months we'll have more facilities in the state of Florida and he will come back.
But for Todd's family, time isn't something they can count on.
If I can't be close to family and friends, what's the sense in fighting this disease?
Todd can finally go home, and you can see he's so much happier because a huge burden has been lifted. These sounds have become normal for 51-year-old Todd Hendrickson. For years, he has been trapped in his own body, completely intact mentally, but physically, ALS has him stuck in this bed, unable to move or speak. But now between those sounds of machines are the familiar sounds of his mother and the sights of his family. Bright spots in what has been a difficult journey.
I can't express how much better it is. To be close to family and friends and get the care I'm getting is a godsend.
For you to fully appreciate this moment, you have to see where he was and what he looked like in July. Visibly struggling not only with the disease, but the reality of having to be shipped to a facility in Georgia, hundreds of miles away from his family. CBS 12 News Investigates uncovered Florida has a severe shortage of nursing home facilities for patients like Todd who need long-term ventilator care.
If I can't be close to family and friends, what's the sense in fighting this disease?
But now a new Todd, brighter eyes, smile, and outlook. Because since the CBS 12 News Investigates report in July, he learned he gets to stay not only in Florida, but at home, where his 24-hour care will now be fully covered by his health care provider.
It's beautiful. I'm so glad he's here. Doesn't he look better?
Having to live so far away seemed like a death sentence to me. I'm happier and more positive about my situation.
His newfound joy is contagious. Todd accepts his situation and is still able to find happiness.
I can't understand how there isn't a better plan for people like me.
He just wants everyone else in his position to have the same opportunity. Todd and his family can't stress enough how much they want the shortage in Florida to be addressed. And they say they won't stop advocating for a change until it happens. And on our end, we won't stop working either. So if you're experiencing a similar situation, please reach out to us. Reporting from the Treasure Coast, Niala Charles, CBS 12 News. Carlene Colasi is in the final stage of ALS. 5 months ago, she was forced to leave her home of 50 years to go to a nursing home in a small town in rural Georgia because it was the closest facility to offer the ventilator she needs to breathe. In the last days of her life, all she wants is to be with her family and friends, now hundreds of miles away. Carlene Colasi and her husband Chuck made a lifetime of memories in Venice, Florida. They never imagined she'd be forced to live out her final days so far from everything they know.
We love it in Florida. Oh, we loved every minute of it.
Corinne was a rock in the community. A teacher and an active church member, she was always there for those who needed her.
She liked doing for people. She liked doing everything for people.
Especially her husband, who has battled multiple illnesses through the years. 3 years ago, she was diagnosed with ALS. And their roles reversed.
It got to a point where I had to help her into bed and help her to go to the commode.
And then the thing she most feared happened.
Her worst nightmare was being sound mind, but not be able to do absolutely anything else.
Today, she can only move one wrist. And Chuck has to read her lips because she can barely speak.
Huh? Help you? What, hon? Hold you? Your head? Oh, okay. I'll have to move her head.
The one bright spot of her day, visits from family and their many friends. Comforts that were lost when she was forced to move out of state.
But this has been a nightmare, it really has.
The Colasis were dropped in the middle of nowhere. The city of Colquitt is very small, just 3 miles wide. Aside from a few businesses, the city is mostly covered with cotton fields. The closest movie theater and Walmart are an hour away. The distance means she rarely sees any family besides her husband.
She has so many friends, and to be here, that's why she's mostly depressed.
Probably the best person in my life. My most favorite person.
At 27 years old, Carlene's granddaughter, named after her, moved to Colquitt so her grandparents wouldn't have to be alone.
She gave up her life. She had a good job.
The small town came with a small number of options. She couldn't find a place to rent.
This was the spot I was staying at right here. There was a very small little RV.
Or work.
It took a lot out of me emotionally and mentally.
She tried to stick it out, but after 5 months in Colquitt, she moved an hour away to Tallahassee.
I'm literally the only person they see that they know most of the time. So I know it would help her being able to see all her friends, and it would give whatever life she has left at least some joy.
With the ALS progressing, they don't know how much time that is. All they know is that this isn't where or how she wants her life to end.
I just want her to live what life she has with a smile on her face now and then.
We shot this story in Georgia in October, but I learned last week Carlene passed away, still in Colquitt, Georgia. With her at the end were her husband Chuck and their granddaughter Carlene, but it was too far for anyone else to make it in time. If you think it's time for the state to do something about this lack of available care, you're not alone. I'll have that part of the story right here on CBS 12 News Monday night at 11. For now, reporting in the studio, Niala Charles, CBS 12 News. Chuck and Carlene Colese spent her final days in this tiny nursing home in Georgia, hundreds of miles from family and friends who could have made her final days and hours less lonely. They and their best friends, the Powers, were inseparable for decades.
They weren't just friends, like we traveled with them like parent figures, and we had a marital crisis. They were there for us through our own marital crisis. They were way past the point of being, I would say, just a friend. Carlene was always the strong one.
But when Carlene was diagnosed with ALS in 2016, it was time for others to be strong for her.
And the diagnosis was rough because nobody thought it was ALS.
And when she got hit with this, it was pretty devastating.
Is that a little bit better? I'll hold your head for you right now, honey. I'll hold it.
In the final stages of ALS, Carlene needed to be on a ventilator 24 hours a day. The hospital told her she would have to go to a long-term care facility. But of the nearly 700 licensed nursing homes in the state of Florida, only 4 provide long-term care for ventilator patients. And they are all full. Her closest option, 400 miles away in Georgia.
Been a nightmare, it really has.
The Powers did what they could, paying for 24-hour in-home care for Carlene. But at several $1,000s a week, they couldn't keep it up for long. So Carlene and Chuck had to move away from their home of 50 years.
Everyone was completely shocked when, they heard from us, right? They didn't believe it, that there was like no facility in all of Florida.
It's a sad day when we put a dollar price on someone's life.
She was scared, she was heartbroken.
The Powers blame Florida's healthcare system for making an awful situation worse. So we went to Tallahassee to find out what can be done. Speaker of the Florida House, Marilyn Mager, is also the chair of the Healthcare Appropriations Committee.
Is an additional cost that is put on the nursing homes, and many can't afford to get to that point.
Mager says the cost of equipment and 24-hour respiratory specialists to monitor ventilator patients around the clock can top $2 million per patient.
Not all buildings are capable of having this or the expense of it.
The legislature recently increased the Medicaid reimbursement rate for ventilator care by about $200 a day. Not enough to add more beds or more facilities. But Speaker Mager told CBS 12 News she's going to take action and get this in front of her committee.
So you're committed to bringing people to the table to attack this issue?
Yes.
When?
Right now.
Carlene Colese passed away just weeks after we visited with her and her husband in Georgia. She never made it back home, but there are many others in her same position right now. Speaker Marilyn Mager says a date for the roundtable hasn't been set yet, but she has spoken to management from several nursing homes to get a better idea of why they don't have ventilators. From the newsroom, Niala Charles, CBS 12 News.